These are the Hollyland Lark Max 2, and I first saw these back at NAB 2025, and I gotta say, I was blown away with what these microphones can do. Now, for full transparency, I actually reached out to Hollyland and I asked them if they would send over a review unit. However, all of the opinions are my own, and in fact, I'm actually gonna tell you things I don't like about these wireless microphones. Now, I know it's a very saturated market. There's a lot of great microphones out there. In fact, I pretty much own them all, like Rode, DJI Mic 2s, which I've been using for a very long time. And like I said, they're all good. So why would you want to invest in something like this? Well, what Hollyland has done is taken everything that was wrong with those devices because they weren't perfect and has improved on them, but also has given us features that I have yet to see any other microphone set have. So let's go ahead and do a quick unboxing and show you what you get with this particular kit. So this is the Ultimate Combo Kit, and it comes in this little nice carrying pouch. Now, they do have 4 other different variations, but the one that we're gonna be focusing on today is the Ultimate Combo Kit because this is the one they sent me. And if you look at it, this little carrying pouch is very similar, which I actually have here, to the DJI Mic 2s. And what's actually impressive is if you look at the footprint, it's almost identical in size, with the Hollyland being slightly, and I mean very slightly bigger, but you get way more stuff, which we're about to explore. So let's go ahead and open up this little pouch and see what you get inside. So we'll go ahead and start off with the actual main case. So the main case here is something that we've seen in the past where it's a charging case and it charges via USB-C. And then when you open this up, you're greeted with some transmitters and receivers. So again, we've seen this in the past where this charging case charges these devices, and this is nothing new. However, when we start looking at the actual microphones, you can see how tiny they are. They are very, very small. So let's go ahead and explore and see what you get. So the microphone here, you get 2 of them, and you can see there's a little record button. So it does have internal recording, and it does record in 32-bit float, which is pretty standard nowadays. There's also this little noise cancellation button, and as soon as I push on it, you can see it turns green. If I hold down this button, it also acts as a power button. Now you'll notice here, there is no 3.5mm headphone jack. Now, before you say, oh, that's a deal breaker, hold on. They've done something very, very smart, and I'll show you how you can actually get a 3.5mm a little bit later. There's a USB-C port for charging or actually also transferring data. So if you connect this to your computer, you can pull those 32-bit float files. But one thing I do like about these little microphones is this little clip. The way it actually clips onto either your shirt, a hat, or any device you really want to. It's very, very strong, and you can hear the force. Watch. It is very, very tight. Also too, I do like how it's not so obtrusive. So oftentimes, when you put it on, let's say a t-shirt, what you can do is actually put it on the inside and then use that little kind of like alligator clip, and look at that. It's not so obtrusive. Obviously you could still see that it's there, but it's not like those other devices where it's like just kind of like it sticks out like a sore thumb. Now, they do come with magnets, which I'll show you guys a little bit later. So you can put little magnets, and if you want, you can actually put them just like that. But I actually prefer using these alligator clips, and that's actually how I've been using it for a while. So the other thing that there is, going back to the case here, is you have a receiver. And this is a standard receiver that you typically put on top of, let's say, your camera or anywhere that would be safe. And what I really like about their system is just how easy, and I mean easy, it is to use. Like, all these other ones, I've had to kind of like read the instructions, like how do I get this or how do I do that? I never even read anything. I'm like, oh, this definitely makes sense. Let me show you. So say, for example, I want to raise the volume. Well, of course, there's this little dial here, and you can see it says left. So I can raise the volume on this one left. Well, how do I raise the one on the right, which is over here? Well, you just tap on it, and there we go. Now I can raise or lower the volume. It's actually that simple. This is a little home button right here. So if I tap on that, it'll go back home. Now, what's really great about this is that there's 3 important things, and all you gotta do is just swipe up and you'll see them here. For example, noise cancellation is turned on. Remember when I tapped on this, I turned it on. Well, I can actually turn it off too. So if I tap on this, you can see that it turns off. If I want to mute the microphone, I can mute the microphone there. If I wanna mute microphone 2, which is actually in the case, all I gotta do is swipe over. The reason there's an X is because it's not active, it's in the case. So let's go back to microphone 1. Now, if I want to record, let's say I'm recording something important and I don't want to tell my talent, hit the record button because that just doesn't seem professional. All I can do is just do that, and now it's recording, and you can see the little light is on. recording 32-bit float internally, and then I can go ahead and disable that. Now, this is something that I believe Hollyland is probably the only one that is doing it right now, and that it's a full chain 32-bit float. What that means is other systems only record 32-bit float internally. Well, what this does is it actually sends that 32-bit float signal, and the actual receiver also is sending out a 32-bit float signal. So what that means is if you connect this to a camera that supports 32-bit float, and obviously this has to be done by USB-C, it will actually record 32-bit float internally wirelessly, which is impressive. Also, in the case, there's another receiver. So other systems, when you have this receiver, if you want to use it with a smartphone, you technically have to use this big freaking receiver. Well, not with this system. Again, they've corrected all these things that other systems don't have. They have this little baby receiver here, and I'm able to connect this to my smartphone and now use this little guy as a receiver. So if I want to use these microphones with my smartphone, and guess what? Yes, this does receive 32-bit float. So you're getting 32-bit float audio onto your iPhone, and it's just going to work flawlessly. So I do want to talk about this little device that actually does not come with this kit. You have to purchase this separately, but I think it's worth having. So this is a little hot shoe adapter that allows you to connect the receiver. So as you can see, there's a USB-C here. The receiver has a USB-C here, and you just slide this in here. And then what this allows you to do is now connect this to your camera, and now you don't need to attach any cables. So it's all done wirelessly. And of course, the benefit, if your camera supports it, is that because this is receiving that 32-bit float full chain audio, if your camera supports it, you are now able to record 32-bit float internally. So as of right now, this works with Sony. Now, as of right now also, no Sony camera, as far as I know, has 32-bit float internal. I'm talking about mirrorless cameras here that have this hot shoe. But it's good to know that this is kind of future-proofing your system, because I'm sure future Sony cameras, not in the long distant future, will have internal 32-bit float recording. So this is a nice feature. Now let's go ahead and set these aside and see what else you get inside the box. So the first thing that I actually want to talk about is this little guy right here. This is actually the 3.5 millimeter adapter. Now, remember I told you that this does not have a 3.5 millimeter? Well, technically it doesn't. However, you can adapt this little small dongle, and it uses a little USB-C connection where you just connect this on here, and now you get a 3.5 millimeter port. Now, the benefit of getting a 3.5 millimeter port, at least with this particular kit, is that they do include two lavalier microphones. And of course, you also get two of these little dongles too. So now that the size is slightly bigger, it doesn't really matter, because normally if they wanted to include the 3.5 millimeter headphone, you would obviously have to make the device bigger, which means, you know, it kind of sticks out like a sore thumb. However, because you're using this in conjunction with this microphone, the lavalier one, you can actually hide this, put it in the back pocket, because now you're using the lavalier microphone, which I think is actually pretty genius. Let's go ahead and see what else you get inside this pouch. So you get a set of magnets. So everything's gonna be two. So this actually installs very easily. So going back to this little clip here, and they're very strong as you saw right now, you just slide this little sleeve in here, just like that. And now this adds or makes it magnetic. So now taking this, as you can see, it is now magnetized, and it's very, very strong. So you get two of those. You get all of the different cables that you need, whether it's for like charging, connecting it to your camera. I'm just gonna kind of breeze through this. Of course, you get a little wind muff for both microphones, not only just for the actual hard microphone, but also for the this guy here, the lavalier mics. And then that's pretty much it, with the exception of, which I saved the best for last, is these guys. And this is the reason why you may want to upgrade, is you get these over the ear, I guess you can call them like earbuds. Well, they don't actually go inside your ear, but these are all wireless, and they're virtually like, there's no lag. It's like 0.1 milliseconds, and they work phenomenal. So one of the big gripes about whenever you're monitoring audio is you always have to be tethered to your camera. Well, not with this. The way this works is actually pretty genius. You just kind of stick this over your ear, and then it has this little like locking mechanism. And the beauty of it is that I can still hear like perfectly fine. And there's actually two of them. I usually like to just wear one, and I can still hear the ambience, but I can also hear talent. I can hear what's happening with my camera. So this right here, I think, is probably one of the coolest things that makes this kit awesome. And when you compare everything that you get here for the price of what, let's say, DJI sells their kit, the Hollyland system is actually cheaper, which is wild to think that you're getting all of this for less. And the same thing goes for the other ones. Now, you're probably thinking, well, how is the audio quality? Well, let's go ahead and go outside to test all of that. Okay, so we are in this alleyway and there's actually like a really loud fan here because what we're gonna do is test out noise cancellation. Now, I also wanna test out the different types of ways you can wear this. So right now I'm using it with a magnet. So right now I'm gonna go over here and you could probably hear the fan. And then I'm just gonna be quiet for a second. Go ahead and turn on noise cancellation for me, please. So noise cancellation is turned on and I don't know if you can tell the difference, but I'm gonna go ahead and turn it off right now. Go ahead and turn it off. So that's with it off. And then I'm gonna go ahead and wear it just normal, and then that way you guys can see what that sounds like. So I've got the microphone now inside the shirt, and I'm gonna go over here where it's really loud. That way you guys can hear the difference. So I'm gonna be quiet for a second, and then I'm gonna give you a thumbs up when to turn it on. So again, we're just gonna be quiet. You could probably hear the difference because now noise cancellation is on. And again, we're filming in this alley, and then go ahead and turn off noise cancellation. I think you guys can hear the difference. You could probably hear even more cars passing by. So now let's go ahead and test out the lavaliers. Okay, so now I have the lavalier microphones. Noise cancellation is turned off. I'm gonna go ahead and step over here where it's much louder, although you could probably still hear it. Let's go ahead and turn on noise cancellation. So now noise cancellation is turned on. There's cars passing by right now, so it's much quieter, I'm certain. And this is also what you guys can hear what the lavalier sounds like. Let's go ahead and turn off noise cancellation. Now, one thing too about these microphones is you can also do time code, and there's also a really neat application that you can control the mics that is actually very easy to use. So just kind of a little FYI. Again, noise cancellation is turned off. You can probably hear the cars. Let's go ahead and turn it back on one more time. Again, these are with the lavalier microphones, so that way you guys can hear the difference between off and on. Now, the next thing I want to do is test out the range. So we definitely need to get out of here and let's go somewhere much further to test out the range of these microphones. So I'm about 200 feet away, which I believe is like 65 meters. These can go up to 300 meters. And as you can barely see me, I think, I'm gonna have to use the full resolution of this 6K plus, you know, the focal length. I'm freaking far. Like I could barely see Evan and I would never use him at this distance. So it's kind of cool to know that it works and Evan can still hear me without any problems. So what did you guys think of the sound quality? Personally, after using every wireless microphone system out there, I can tell you they all sound really good and some might be slightly better than the other, but we're honestly splitting hairs here. What actually impressed me though was the range. I could barely see Evan and the fact that he can still hear me, because I would never use him in a situation like that where I can barely see my talent and I can still hear them. Like, yeah, I would never use him like that. So the range was very impressive. Now, let's talk about the things I don't like about him, which actually aren't very many, and I feel like I'm being very nitpicky here because, yeah, they're almost perfect. So the first thing is I love this dongle idea. I think this is brilliant, and this is one way that they were able to keep the footprint small. However, if you're gonna do that, at least give me a locking 3.5 millimeter headphone. Like, come on. I mean, Rode does it, and this I feel like was a miss, because again, I don't care how big this is now, because once I attach this 3.5 millimeter dongle, if you want to call it that, size doesn't matter, because I'm going to be using the actual lavalier mic, which means I'm going to put this in the back pocket, I'm going to clip it, so it's going to be out of the way. It's not like it's going to be right here. So again, the 3.5 millimeter was a miss. The other thing that was kind of like, ah, man, really, was the actual magnets here. So I love the magnet design. I think it's great. The fact that when you have it on and you want to stow it away, check this out, it won't close. Ah, really? Like, I feel like they could have just notched this out a little bit bigger and we wouldn't have that problem. So I'll give you, for an example, I have the DJI Mic 2, and you can see I actually store the mics in here all the time. I think they just work great, and they actually have a little extra room. I just feel like those small little details, like somebody wasn't paying attention, and that was kind of a bummer. But actually, even comparing the size here, you can see how big or how much larger the DJI mic cases. And also, since I have it here, let's even compare the microphones. I mean, look at the size of these mics. I mean, the DJI is much larger, it's wider. You can almost just hide it right here. So now, the other thing too is like if you want smaller microphones, because I know some people are going to be like, well, you know, there's smaller microphones out there. The problem with those microphones is they don't record 32-bit float. And I think that what Hollyland has done is keeping this footprint small, and being able to record in 32-bit float is great. But they also have the Lark A1. The Lark A1s are tiny. I mean, look at these. It's like a little small little pill. In fact, it's like the size of the little dongle here. Look, these things are very, very small. And these are more for like if you're using a smartphone, because they have, if you're still using the older iPhone Lightning or any modern phone with the USB-C, you can use the receiver and then use these guys for, you know, smartphone, you know, audio. These are very inexpensive. I think like you can get like, this is a whole kit, but you can get one where it's just like one microphone and receiver. I think it's like $35, I believe. I'll leave pricing down below if you guys want to check it out. But yeah, these are very small. If you don't care about the 32-bit float recording, if you're going to be using your smartphone, this might be the way to go. But yeah, I think what Hollyland has done with this particular system, the Lark Max 2, is very impressive. And again, for the price point, what you get for your money, it's almost a no-brainer. So yeah, let me know what you guys think. My name is Armando. Thanks again for watching, and you will catch me in the next one. Adios.